right, we are at that time. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Ron.
Welcome. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Church, 8:30 p.m., Doylestown, Pennsylvania. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish to not be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Kid, sir.
My name is Philip. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Philip. Welcome.
John, alcoholic.
Hey, John. Welcome. Anybody else? Okay, good stuff. Welcome. If you have any questions or would like to make this your home group, please see any group member after the meeting. Would group members please raise their hand? Okay. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Easy night. The Conscious Contact Group encourages sponsorship with anyone with the working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor. Please raise your hands. Okay. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books to help those who can't afford them can put them in the jar marked on the table. It's marked Big Book Donations. If you'd like a CD of any speaker, past or present, see me or John after the meeting. They're available free of charge. We always need help, so if you'd like to get involved with this meeting, see John or me after the meeting. Yay, preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problems and help others recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. At this time, I've asked John to please come up and read the 12 steps.
Hi, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, John.
These are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John. What did I forget? Okay, we have a 7th tradition. The basket will come around. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. There is absolutely no smoking on the church property. The church warned us they do not tolerate any cigarette butts, so this meeting will always be in jeopardy if you decide to light a cigarette. If you see a butt on the ground, please pick it up. Okay, this brings us to our speaker. Gentleman traveled all the way from New Jersey to share his message tonight. Always enjoy listening to him. His name's Jim A. from New Jersey. His home group is, he'll tell us when he gets up here. Please help me welcome Jim.
I'm Jimmy. I'm an alcoholic. Grateful to be alive and sober, and I'm exhausted. It's been a long day. We were just talking about that, and we had our area elections today. And I don't know about anyone else in here, but I have this attachment to what other people think of me all the time. I'm sure a lot of you guys in Pennsylvania are not like that, but I am still all these years later. And I've been in service for a pretty long time now, and so I decided, with the prodding of a sponsor and a service sponsor and a bunch of other yahoos that I know, to throw my name in a hat for a position, for an area officer. And I'm saying, there's no way in hell. Why would they pick me? Why would they pick me? And then I threw my name in as the area chair today, and no, I didn't win. It went to the hat, which I don't know if anyone is in service here, but it's a long process that emotionally has you on a yo-yo going up and down all for about an hour. And they pulled the right guy out. And that's what I like about when they vote by the hat, because that's what God wants. He wants that person in that position. So they threw my name in for the second, and I got elected today as the area coordinator, alternate chairperson. Now that sounds real fancy, right? Please, please. Oh. My wife says, "What are you doing now?" If you told me when I was in jail the last time that I would be an area coordinator, I'd be in Doylestown giving a talk, I'm going to Naples next week, I'm like, come on, really? Whose story are you telling today? It's not my story. Because, as you'll hear, well, let me just get started. I was born perfect. And I was quickly handed over to these two character defects called mom and dad. And, there's a problem with that, though, because, we live life forward in here, but we understand it backwards. That's the power of being sober, that we look back through our lives and we see in hindsight really what goes on. And, this idea that I'm perfect, I joke about that, but boy, when you think like that, and you believe you're like that, there's a problem with that. And the problem with that, for a guy like me, is that you're never wrong. And you always blame people for everything. You're never responsible. You don't care much about anything. You're entitled for everything. You manipulate as many people as you can to get what you want. You're selfish, you're self-centered. Should I go on? You get the drift. And that's kind of really the way I grew up. Always about me, always about being selfish, always about taking advantage of two parents that really, really, really gave me everything in life to succeed. And I took advantage of it, and I threw it right back in their face, and I made sure they knew that I was throwing it back in their face. And that was really the guy I became even before I took a drink. And I've heard from a million podiums, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have too, is this idea of this feeling, this disconnect. It wasn't until I was sober for a long time that I really found out what my problem is, and I think it's the problem of every person in this room if you're a real alcoholic. And as they say, it's conscious separation. And conscious separation is this disconnect from a power greater than myself. It took me a long time to understand it because I thought I just had a drinking problem. And when you're growing up, and I grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood. I grew up in a town called Jersey City, New Jersey. It's right outside the Holland Tunnel. I grew up in a neighborhood where they didn't practice birth control. Every family had, it was the 60s, and every family had, the only requirement for membership in a neighborhood was 5 or more kids. I mean, every family had 10 kids, 8 kids, 9 kids. I mean, you never had to look for other kids to play ball, there was always enough kids around. And, I was growing up in the 60s, and it was a safe time. It was a good time. It was, all the moms stayed home, all the dads went to work, and you left your house at 8:30 in the morning, and your parents didn't have to worry about you, and you rolled back in around 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. It was a lot of safety. It was safety in numbers. My dad was a butcher, so we ate good my whole life. No real foreseeable problems growing up. Into sports, doing all the things that we do, But about the age of 13, something happened in my life where, the public school system was starting to really, really become dangerous. And, we were coming out of the civil rights fight. There was a lot of, fights going on back in that time in Newark and Jersey City. A lot of the inner cities were having a lot of problems. And my parents thought it would be a good idea to take us out of public school system and put us into the Catholic school system. And really, that's really where I started to go a little sideways because, I was really connected with a bunch of guys. I was really connected to the pattern of life at that time. I was really connected to just walking up the street. And now it was about getting on a bus, going to meet new people, meeting new friends. These little things called nuns all of a sudden were in charge of life. And, it was a rough time. And I didn't understand it. And, at the age of 13, I'm feeling what I guess, well, now that I have kids, my own kids, I know what, at the time I couldn't tell you what it was, but now I know. You know, I like to say it was hormonal. I like to say it was, trying out for sports teams or meeting girls or going to dances for the first time. This feeling that I just talked about earlier, this feeling of, I'm so concerned about what you think of me. This insecurity, this driving force of most alcoholics, and that was me. And at the age of 13, I can remember it was 43 years ago. Some of you guys are not even 43 years old. I can remember it was like yesterday. I'm in a cemetery with 5 friends, and I could name them right now. I don't even remember how we got here tonight. I could remember 43 years ago. And, here comes Colt 45, first bottle. Here comes the second bottle, Mohawk Blackberry Brandy. And, I put my hand in there. I had those strong warnings from my parents, but I put my hand in there, and something happened that night. I loved the effect produced by alcohol. Threw up, puked purple for about 2 weeks, and the hook was in. And what I didn't realize that night was that was the night that I stepped on a road that went straight to hell. And that's really what happened. And I like to tell you that, I became an everyday drinker right away. No, that didn't happen to me. But life started to get really different. Life started to change a lot for me. And all of a sudden I became a little thief. I had sticky fingers. Private property was 2 words I had a problem with. And here I go. This is my drinking career, and weekend warrior, dances, football games, kegs of beer in the woods. Well, not in the city, but, stuff like that. And by the time I'm 18 years old, I'm an everyday drunk. I'm a fall-down drunk. I'm a blackout drunk. I'm a guy that gets locked up a lot. I'm a guy that's a disorderly conduct type of guy. I'm the guy that fights cops. I'm the type of guy that's a thief that gets caught stealing. I'm just every moral fiber, every value my parents that they put in me, everything I've ever learned in school, everything I've ever I knew as good was easily tossed to the side for the foolish idea that this idea that I'm going to drink is more important. So here I am. I'm 18 years old, and again, my parents, the great enablers. Let's send them to college. Maybe that'll help. So off I go to the great state of Pennsylvania, and I wound up in the University of Scranton, and it started the 10 greatest years of my life, college. I joke on that, but that's within a year I was tossed out. Within a year, I blew up just about everything in school. And, I came home, and here I am, 19 years old, 20 years old. I'm uneducated. I don't have a trade. I don't have any passion. I have no passion. I didn't have passion until I was sober for a long time. Nothing really drove me to do anything. We used to have an old saying in Alcoholics Anonymous a long time. I was MOCUS. Look it up. Just living to drink. Just living to drink. And here I am, 18, 19, 20 years old, 21 years old, 22 years old, showing up at union halls, can't get a job, so what do? I go to the corner bar every day. I grew up in a city where there's a bar in every corner. And that became my life. And I can give you 1,000,001 stories of what I did. I can give you 1,000,001 stories of the trouble. I give you 1,000,001 stories of it's not my fault. But here I am. I'm just drinking around the clock, and that's my life. And life is progressing. And I'm about 26 years old, and I'm in a bar one day, and I see a really pretty girl over there in the corner, and I see my sister over here. I said, and I'm not a drug addict, but this is my drug story, so I'll go with it. I said, Barbara, if you could introduce me to her, I'll buy you a gram of Coke. That's my drug story. And being a real good, guy, I meet this girl, and 7 months later, I'm engaged to get married. I don't have a job. I have so much debt you can't believe. I'm irresponsible. I'm non-caring. I hate myself, basically. I don't really know that, but I kind of sense that. I don't even know if I like her, but I think that if I get married, that'll solve my problem, See, I'm one of those guys that, I've always tried this I've always had this internal problem, though I didn't know it was an internal problem, but I was always under the delusion that if I just got something from out here to fix this, I'd be okay. I mean, I see that, in here constantly. And whether it's women, whether it's sex, whether it's money, whether it's a new car, whether it's a job, whether it's go on vacation, none of that stuff works for a guy like me. So here I am, I get married. And we had this big, elaborate wedding, big-time wedding, like 300 people. It was gigantic. To this day, even if, now she's my ex-wife, even if she gave me the VHS of that wedding, I don't think I could even look at it because I know how embarrassing that was for me, for her, and for my family because I was so drunk and loaded at this thing. So here I am, I'm married, and I'm really under the delusion that, man, this thing is going to make me do the right thing. And what happened was 3.5 months I walked out of the marriage because she came in between me and a drink. And, I just wanted to drink more than be in a marriage. I just wanted to drink more than work. I didn't know about this physical allergy to alcohol. I didn't know about this obsession and idea that's so strong it overcomes all other ideas. I didn't know this was all being fueled by a spiritual malady deep down within. I don't find that stuff out till a long time in AA. I just think that I just want to drink and be like my friends. But what I really see is that my friends are getting jobs and careers and families, and they're moving on, and they seem to be growing up, and I'm having a very hard time growing up here because I just want to hang out in the corner bar. I want to watch the ball games. I want to be with my friends and, or fair weather friends, whatever you want to call them. That's what I think is what I really want to do in my life. So I walk out of this marriage, and I go down to my second home, which is down in Florida, my home away from home, and I can't stop drinking. I just can't stop drinking. And every morning I hear, and it's the four horsemen: terror, frustration, bewilderment, despair. Every morning, fear. Every morning, restless, irritable, discontent. You use the adjectives. Every morning, I want to shoot myself. Every morning, I know what I'm doing is wrong. I know in my heart what I'm doing is wrong, but I just can't stop. And what happens is, there's a sound. It's the crack of a seal. Johnny Walker Red. And then something happens when I take that drink. This feeling of grandiosity comes back. And this feeling that I'm okay. And this feeling of all of a sudden, well, it's your fault that I feel the way I feel. See, I'm a good pointer. Again, I'm a good blamer. I'm a good deflector. I can never take stock honestly, and I can never be responsible for what I'm doing. I always have to blame you. That's part of being a perfect child, I think, But what is really going on is that I am terrified. Terrified. I prided myself on being a tough guy. I'm a product of the streets. I thought that was something that you wear like a badge of honor. I'm a violent guy. I'm a crime guy. I thought that was important to me growing up. I'm a thug. And I don't know that. And it's even weird to say that this many years later that I look back. It's a different person back then. I'm not that man anymore. But back then, I was so connected to the street life, and what we do on the street. It's a miracle what has happened in my life to be standing here right now, the area coordinator. Sometimes I think, holy Christ, have you ever heard half the story? Well, then I forgot I'm in an AA meeting, But so here I am, I'm down in Florida, and, eventually I had to come back. And 7 months later, after walking out of that marriage, I come back. And I walk into the bar one day, and I'm shaking, I'm baking, I'm starting to get some of the physical problems with drinking. I got the shakes a lot, I'm just a mess. And I run into two firefighters that I know, two Jersey City firefighters, and one of them has a brother that's in this thing called AAA and A or something like that, which I've never heard, or I've never heard anything about recovery or anything like that. And he go, well, let's call him up and maybe he could talk to you and hopefully help you. So here I go. I meet this firefighter and some other guy, and they come over and they're doing a 12-step call on me, and I don't even know what the hell they're talking about half the time. But I agree to go to a thing called a detox, which I've never heard of either. It's kind of weird when you say that stuff sometimes, but I had no idea what a detox was. So off I go to this hospital, and it's a 5-day thing, and I'm in there, and my roommate's a heroin addict, and I'm not a heroin addict. And a heroin addict, when he's in withdrawals, looks a lot different than an alcoholic in withdrawals. And see, this conscious separation and this terminal uniqueness that my case is different, I'm not like that. And I AMA'd my way right out of there, and I went back to the bar and I told those guys they're nuts. But what happened was, it was St. Patty's Day. Now, I'm a chameleon. I know no one in Pennsylvania is a chameleon, but I'm a chameleon. I will do whatever I need to do to make you like me, or to do the things like, just to be a different person. So Jersey City has a gigantic St. Patty's Day parade. Used to be a big Irish city, before it changed over. And they used to have a major parade. It was the biggest parade in New Jersey at one time. And what we used to do was march as taverns. Each bar had a guy holding a flag, and it was ridiculous. It was like everyone came out of detox to march in the parade. It was crazy. And I thought this one day, since it was my turn to hold the flag, the American flag in front of the bar, was to paint myself green. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of paint that these kids get today where you just take a shower and it comes off. I go down to my father's basement and I get like this lead-based paint that he used in like 1955 on the cement block underneath the house. And I paint myself green. Well, about 3 months later when it finally came off, I walked around green for a long time. And and you know what? I didn't even care. But here I am, Mr. Green. I look like a jolly green giant. I'm in a bar on St. Patty's Day, and guess who walks in? And I wasn't sure what to call her, my ex-wife, my wife to be again, or I don't know. The woman that I got married to like 9 months earlier walks in the bar. And she walks up to me, and I haven't called her in 9 months. I haven't talked to my family in 9 months. No one knows where I'm at. Probably because I'm green and they don't know that. But here I am. I'm in Jersey. I'm in this bar, and she says to me, I guess through the neighborhood chatter, I heard you're getting help. And as I'm sucking down a beer, I'm saying, "Yep, got a lot of help." And I look back at that, and it's just this total disrespect to another person, and total just contempt towards her, towards anything, and just. That's where alcohol brought me. Just to a place of shallowness, a place of hatred for myself, for a lot of things. Booze did a number on me psychologically. Booze did a number on me physically. Booze did a number on me mentally and spiritually, obviously. And it started the last run. And the guilt, the shame, the remorse, the stuff that was coming up inside because of the things I'd done to her, my family. It was coming like a big bat and just hit me. And I just couldn't stop drinking even though I wanted to. And what happened was one day I went out to, walked in a bar, and two guys in there said, "Jimmy, they're hiring guys like you at Newark Airport. I think you should go down there." Guys like me, finally I'm being recognized for my talent here. And what it was back in the old days, there was an airline called People's Express that became Continental eventually, and that's now United and blah, blah, blah. But People's Express used to hire guys like us, and they would pay us cash to hopefully get your luggage on that plane over there. That was the plan. And if I owe you amends for any of your luggage back in the day, but that was the idea. So they said, "Jim, you need to go down to Newark Airport and, apply, and they'll give you a little interview and they'll put you right on, no problem." I said, "All right." And the idea was, and these were guys that were hanging in the bar just as long as me, their idea was that hopefully I'd take that money and maybe start putting it to use, like maybe buying food, maybe paying some bills, maybe send it back to my ex-wife, maybe do something of value with that. But they knew damn well that I was just going to drink it down. So here I go to Newark Airport, I go with this other guy, we stole a car, and we go to Newark Airport. I think of that today, we didn't even have a car. And we rob a car, and we go to Newark Airport. And I walk in a room, maybe a little bit bigger than this, and there's about 45 men sitting in the room. And I'm dying. I'm shaking, I'm baking. I'm 28 years old. I look like I was about 58 years old. I walk in and I sit next to a gentleman like this, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like this, and he looked at me and he said, "What is your problem?" Maybe it was a moment of grace, maybe it was a moment of clarity, but what happened was I spit up my life story on this guy in about 10 minutes. And he looked at me and he said, "I have the solution for you." And I said, "What's that?" And he says, "Is it possible for you not to pick up a drink the rest of this day?" And I said, "I have no idea. I want to drink right now." He goes, "Where are you living?" I said, "Well, whatever couch I'm living, that's where I'm living." He goes, "Is it possible for you to not pick up a drink the rest of this day and meet me outside the house that you're staying at?" And I said, "I'll try." And I really didn't have any plan. I didn't know if that was, all I know is 7 o'clock came that night, and I didn't drink the rest of that day. And I stood outside this house, and this stranger that I met in Newark Airport pulled up in the car with a couple of other strangers, and they pulled me into the car, and they took me catty corner to my grammar school, and they brought me into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And for years I thought that was bingo going on. I didn't know it was AA meetings. And they walked me in. It was the St. Paul's young people. I was the youngest guy in the meeting that night. I was 28 years old. And that was on March 28th, 1987. That's the last day I drank. It's amazing. Truly is amazing. I walked in there, it was like a grammar school reunion. I thought you died. I thought you were in jail. I thought, it was... And what happened was the most unbelievable thing happened to me that night. I was given back something I never thought I'd ever get back. My dignity. Because see, you people didn't judge me when I walked in that room that night. I smelled, I didn't look good, I could barely talk, and you welcomed me. And you sat me up in a chair like that, a metal chair. You gave me a half a cup of coffee. I thought that was kind of lame, but then I understood why. Then I understood that you put me in the front so I don't puke on anyone, and that was another thing I didn't know. See, the old timers were very, very kind to me, but they were very firm with me too, because they didn't want to hear anything I had to say. They just told me, "Shut up, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth," all those old things we used to say. And but something happened that night, and what happened was I wanted to come back. There was something that happened inside me. See, it's something that happens in every one of us in this room, and nobody could do it for you. I can't do it for you. Can't do it for you. Can't do it for you. And that's give you willingness or desire. That has to come from within. And usually the catalyst for that is a good whooped ass. Circumstances make us willing. See, I didn't know that then. And those guys, they didn't say, "Okay, Jim, here's a meeting book with some phone numbers, good luck." No, they didn't do that. They didn't give me any numbers. They said, "Be outside the house tomorrow, 8 o'clock in the morning. We're going to a 10 o'clock meeting." I said, "That's 2 hours before." They said, "That's right. Be outside the house at 8 o'clock in the morning." And they picked me up, and they talked me to death. They didn't talk me to death. They 12-stepped me to death. And then they brought me to a 1 o'clock meeting, and then they brought me to a meeting that night. And that went on for about 3 weeks. And that's what they started to do. They started to introduce me to our fellowship called Alcoholics Anonymous. And they started to teach me the lingo that goes on in these rooms, because we do talk another language when a newcomer's around. And they started to explain slogans. They started to explain service work. They started to explain why that basket with money's going around. It's not for you to steal. They would start talking about that. They would talk about the coffee pot. They would talk about the literature rack in the back. They would talk about that guy over there. Yeah, it's a GSR. That's what he does. And they started to explain what we do in these rooms. And time started to grow. And time started to grow. And time started to grow. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Got back with that wife. We had a couple of little AA babies who are today now 25 and 22 years old. My life started to get really good. I got an A+ in fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how good I was doing. But at 5 years without a drink, I got a rope. I just need a bridge to jump off. Because what happened is, I'm up against something I don't even know I'm up against. And at 5 years without a drink, I'm dying in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm starting to hit the fatal second bottom that a lot of us hit in these rooms. See, booze drove me to my knees when I came in, right? That was the great catalyst, drinking. But now I'm sober, and I'm dying in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and what I'm dying of is untreated alcoholism, a term I never even goddamn heard of. I don't even know what that means. I just know that at 5 years without a drink, I am crawling out of my skin. I'm punching holes in walls because of my anger. I am terrified of everything. I'm in conflict with everyone. I'm like a dry drunk. I'm a dry drunk. The old timers used to say this too, stinking thinking leads to drinking. An old time line you never hear anymore. But how true that is for guys like me, because you know what? When I'm stinking thinking, it's all being pulled from deep down within, because I'm filled with guilt. I'm filled with remorse. See, I wasn't drinking, but I was living a life of a crook still. And I was still stealing. And I was stealing your emotions. I was stealing your peace of mind. I was stealing whatever I can get to fill my needs. And again, using external stuff to feel better. And God, what is that? What is that? That's Catholic upbringing I have? I'm not going to believe in that stuff. You know, as God watched me my last 16 years of active life, I lived like a pirate. I'm going straight to hell with all that stuff. You know, and I had such conflict. I had such contempt prior to investigation when I walked in these rooms, you know. And at 5 years without a drink, I'm dying. But I have another problem, big problem, big problem. See, they say resentment is the number one offender. It'll kill more alcoholics than anything. That's true. But I'll tell you what's going to kill people like me that have a little bit of time, and maybe you that have a little time, and that's called pride. This attachment to what other people think of me. That's why I become an actor in Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah, I'm an AA angel for 1 hour, but when I'm out there, I'm an AA son of a bitch out there, right? I look good in here. I could talk the lingo. I could quote the 12 and 12. I could throw big book lines at you. But then I go home and I'm screaming at my wife. I'm punching holes. I'm yelling at the kids. My job, forget about that, you know. Oh, God, elimination of our drinking is just the beginning. A more important demonstration of these principles lies in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. Point blank, what's your home life look like, Jim? It's a mess. What's your occupation look like, Jim? It's a mess. What's it look like, Jim, to go to the diner after the Friday night meeting when you're all sitting around judging the speakers, gossiping about who's in a meeting, talking about the girls? What's that look like, Jim? I'm dying in AA again. I'm dying in AA, and I don't know what the hell to do. And my pride and my ego wouldn't allow me to raise my hand and say, help. Help me. Please, somebody help me. Yeah, I have a sponsor. I call them and I give them about 30% of what's really going on. And when I do call them, it's about the Yankee game or the football game or some other nonsense. I can't get honest with anyone because I can't get honest with me, because the golden rule of recovery is rigorous honesty, right? We read it 3 times and how it works. It tells me that. But I can't do it. Why? Because I don't know how to do it. I'm too afraid to ask you how to do that. How do you do that? How do you go in and start looking at this stuff without fear stopping you? How do you do that kind of crap? You know? But ask me to speak? Oh, I'll speak on anything. Speak. Oh, so 5 years sober, I want to kill myself, but someone walks up and says, Jim, I'd like you to speak in Bayonne, New Jersey on the second step. Came to believe that a power greater than yourself can restore your sanity. I'll speak on that. I read the 12 and 12. I could throw out some good lines, right? Once in a while I'll come up with a good joke, right? So I go to the podium, and I'm speaking in Bayonne, New Jersey, talking about a power that I don't even have a relationship with, that I am so disconnected from. But God forbid, you guys know that because I'm Jim, and I got 5 years sober, right? Or 5 years dry, right? And here I am, and I'm giving this talk. And at the end of the talk, you know, the cha-cha line, everyone, hey, thanks. I could see him coming right up the middle. I'm 6'4". This guy was 6'4". And he comes up to me and he looks at me eyeball to eyeball, goes, you're screwed. But in a little bit saltier language. You know what I wanted to do? I wanted to lay him out. Because I don't know how to face resistance with no resistance. I don't know how to face that kind of conflict without being aggressive, without bringing the street back out into me. I don't know how to handle that without screaming, yelling, kicking, biting, whatever it takes, because he's showing me up. Childish. But that's where I'm at 5 years without a drink. I'm that immature little kid in AA in a 32-year-old body at this time now. Still a little child. And I look at him, and maybe it's my another moment of grace. Maybe it's a moment of clarity. My good friend Ralph likes to say, when desperation meets opportunity, a sliver of grace shines through. And we need to step through this window and let that grace shine. And again, I step through that window, and I go to Bill. His name was Bill Grace from St. Paul, Minnesota. Walked into Jersey City with this blue book underneath his arm, carrying this message of depth and weight. And, you know, I said to him, you're right. I need help. And I found myself that next morning or afternoon in a little railroad room apartment in Jersey City, New Jersey, with this man saying to me, open up your book. And I said, what book? What book you talking about? the book Alcoholics Anonymous. What? What are you talking about? Doesn't that sound ridiculous in this day and age of an AA world? See, back then, we didn't have all these solution-based meetings, as we call them today. We didn't have big book meetings back then. Matter of fact, we used to have business meetings where the old-timers would tell us to stay away from this guy, Bill Grace, because he's going to kill us with that information. That's how threatened and worried they were about what this new language that was coming into AA in 1987 to 1992. And that sounds ludicrous today, but that's what went on. So I said, I don't have a book, and he handed me a book, and he asked me a very important question. He said, Jim, why are you alcoholic? And the best I can come up with, 5 years separated from my last drink, was because I drank too much. I had no idea about this allergy. I had no idea about this physical craving of alcohol. I had no clue about that stuff. And he opened up that book, and he turned to that first page, which is a blank page. He goes, this is what you know about recovery. And he asked me to put 3 questions in there. He said, Jim, I want you to write these 3 questions down and ask yourself these 3 questions every day. How are you showing up? Are you being accountable? And are you being of service to God and others? And every day I would read those questions, and I would start reading them, and I would start to understand later on, I would come to understand that what he wanted me to do is start focusing on me a little bit. Because I'm so good at looking at you and comparing against you and what you got, what I don't got, my jealousy, my envy, my hatred, all this stuff. And all of a sudden what he wanted me to do, and not in a selfish way, but in more of a inventory way, was, where are you? Where are you standing, Jim, right now? How are you showing up? In meetings, in your family, on your job, in the diner, in the grocery store? How are you showing up? Are you being accountable? Are you calling your sponsor? Are you calling the people in your life? Do you have a network of men that you could talk to and talk about anything and not just bullshit them? Excuse me. You know, are you being of service to God and to others? What are you doing when you get into a meeting? Are you taking, or are you trying to give? Are you getting involved in service? Are you making coffee? Are you going up to the newcomer, or maybe the guy that's sitting over there? Maybe whether he has 30 minutes or 30 years, are you putting your hand out to him? See, we have a responsibility pledge in Alcoholics Anonymous. When anyone, anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA to always be there for that. I'm responsible. Are you being responsible, Jim, for your sobriety? And those grave emotional mental disorders we talk about, those things we talk about in how it works, those grave emotional mental disorders doesn't mean you have mental problems, Jim. That just means that whatever you're not doing that's blocking you from the solution to your problem is a grave emotional mental disorder. So if you're not walking up to people, Jim, and reaching your hand out and asking them how they're doing, and you're just going to your little clique over there in the corner and talking about the ball game or the beach or whatever you're doing, you're missing it. You're missing what this is all about. This is about reaching out, helping out, being useful. So here I am on this journey, first day out of the box. I'm starting to get a little lesson on, getting connected in a sense that I've never felt before. And here I am with this man named Bill Grace, and we're starting to go week by week by week by week. I'm going through these chapters. I go through the doctor's opinion. I start to understand about this allergy alcohol. I start to understand that I have no power, choice, and control in my body once I take that first drink. And I start to understand something even more important, that I have no power, choice, and control in my mind prior to drink. That I have this obsession. I have an obsession about a lot of things, ideas that are so strong they overcome all other ideas. And the only way that I'm ever going to get rid of that stuff is with a connection to a power greater than myself. Jim, your problem's lack of power. Conscious separation. When you are not connected to a power, Jim, you're running on your own power. And guys like you can't stay sober running on your own power. That you need to tap into a power and become reliant and dependent upon the God of your understanding. And see, step 2 was just an arrival point. Step 2 was just making a decision. Am I willing to believe, or do I believe? Yes or no? Let's go. Got this firm foundation of willingness, Jim. Are you ready to believe in something? Yeah, I believe. I have some kind of belief in God. Can't understand it, don't know how to talk about it. Kind of ashamed of talking about it, especially with the background I have. So all of a sudden, a week later, I found myself on my knees with this man, holding his hands. I'm a racist, I'm a homophobe, I'm a bigot, you name it. And here I am, I'm holding hands with a man, and I'm ashamed that I'm holding hands with a man because I don't even know where this is going. I'm just believing in him. I have trust in him that he's taking me down this path that really goes somewhere. And here I am, I'm doing this 3rd step prayer. He was reading it out of the book. I'm like, how the hell did you do that? And I have the book next to me. And I'm making a decision on what? That my life run on my terms doesn't work anymore. 3rd step promise. that I got to stop manipulating, I got to stop being in the director's chair, I got to stop playing God across the board. That's hard for us today, for everyone in this room. I know it is. We all step back into the director's chair. But it's constant awareness, the greatest tool for change. Every time I become aware that I'm back in the director's chair, I need to get out. The only way I can get out is to ask God to help me to get out. I don't have the power to get out on my own. So I need to get God to come and get me. So it's constant prayer, it's constant meditation, it's constant accountability to other men. It's constant inventory sometimes. What makes me afraid to get out of the director's chair? Why am I afraid? Why am I afraid to let go and let God? Absolutely. Knowing that the result is nil if I don't. But why do I keep on getting back in that chair? Because I'm afraid. That's why. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the outcome. I'm afraid of not getting what I want. Afraid of not get what I want. Afraid of losing something I already have. Of being afraid of being found out. My fears will always revolve around those three things. So when I got off my knees that day, he said to me, Jim, we're going to launch. Launch. Launch is a very important word. Why? Because you need momentum going through the steps. You just can't take one step a year. That's nonsense, and whoever made that up is nonsense. This is about launching on an aggressive, strenuous, vigorous course of action. So he gave me direction on how to write an inventory. And the first thing I started to find out about me is that I hate everyone. And I'm annoyed with everyone. And I got a lot of regrets. And I wallow in self-pity. And I really beat the shit out of myself a lot because I'm no good. And I didn't know that. So I started to get it out of my head and to get it on paper and start to see the truth. And the truth hurts. I was going to use another word, but the truth hurts sometimes. Spiritual truth hurts. Especially when you find out for the first time. Now I love it. It gets me free. It gets me free all the time. I love the effect produced by inventory. I love the effect produced by inventory. Takes away the fear and gets me honest. What more can I ask for? So here I am. I'm writing inventory for the first time. Thousands of harms, thousands of resentments. I don't have one fear. I couldn't believe how many fears I had. I couldn't believe it. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that. All mind fears. Get it out. And then the harms. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of our shortcomings that this process requires for a successful consummation. Why don't we like it? Because if you're anything like me, I'm going to my grave with my secrets. I'm not talking about this stuff. Putting it under the rug or putting it in the closet. We're not going to talk about the violent past I have. I'm not going to talk about the crime I caused. I'm not going to talk about that stuff. Real men don't talk about that stuff. Guys in the neighborhood don't rat other guys out. That's how I grow up. So I faced great challenges in getting honest with another man and talking about these things because I thought he was going to rat me out. Thought he was going to go to the cops or something. I forgot that I was sitting in front of another drunk who did a lot worse than me. Fear. 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 Can't let my sponsor know. I'm afraid. Can't let my network of guys or girls know. Afraid. It's the evil and corroding thread, as we know. Our fabric of our existence is shot through with this fear. So here I am. A lot of us walk through some unbelievable, let's put it this way. It's probably the most vulnerable time I've ever had in my recovery, is to talk to another man. I had to knock down some unbelievable walls to get honest with this man. And see, my fifth step, when they say a long talk, that's not an understatement. It was a long talk. And I gave everything to him. I gave him my whole life, everything. I didn't hold back in one secret. I gave him everything. And what happened was, I took that hour, like the book suggests, or directs. And I went down to Jersey City, down to the Liberty State Park. There's a big park on the waterfront in Jersey City overlooking Manhattan. And I get down there and it's like these piers that jut out. And I walk out at the end of this pier and I do what the book says. I open it up, I read the first 5 proposals. I thank God for what happened, blah, 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 blah. Mortar without sand, we don't know all that stuff. And I look up and there's the Statue of Liberty. It's like right where that wall is. And I look up and the World Trade Center was still there. It's like right where that wall is. I look over here and there's Ellis Island right there. And You know, it's kind of weird when I think about the freedom that's connected with those three things. And here I am. When my two children were born, I was 2 years sober, 3 years sober, and 5 years sober. And when my ex-wife gave birth to these kids, and for you parents who know this, you know, when that doctor handed me that baby, I couldn't believe I was a father. I mean, the tears were coming down. My heart was split open with joy. I'd never experienced. It was unbelievable. I don't know how to, you can't explain a spiritual experience. It was just unbelievable. And like, holy shit, I'm a father? I mean, here's the kid, take him, come on. Well, I want to tell you that my original fifth step, that same feeling went on that morning, that afternoon. Because I sat out on there and I did what the book says. I took that hour, I read the proposals, mixed mortar without sand. Am I trying, you know, one of the good questions, am I trying to mix mortar without sand? Am I trying to work the program without conceding to my innermost self that I'm alcoholic? We have a lot of that going on in here. That I really haven't hit bottom. I'm just complying with the steps rather than really surrendering to the process of the steps. You know, a lot of people I find going through the steps because Joe says I need to go through the steps rather than truly surrendering to this process. And that's why a lot of people stop working the steps halfway through. They fall prey to comfortability, my opinion. But I sponsor a lot of men and I see it all the time. That all of a sudden everything is getting pretty good, so I don't need to go to any lengths anymore. So I'd leave half those amends done, or not done, and you know, all of a sudden I start to live a life that's filled with dishonesty. All right, let me get back on off the soapbox. Okay, so here I am, and I'll tell you, I started to cry uncontrollably on this pier, and this emotion that was coming through me from God. My arms were wrapped. It felt as though God had his arms wrapped around me. And for the first time in my life, since that little kid who was however big, I knew I was going to be okay. Now that might not sound much to anyone in this room, but for a guy like me, I knew I wasn't never going to drink again if I continued to do what I was going to do. I knew it. I haven't drank since. I haven't had an obsession other than one time. I have not thought about a drink in a long, long time. God removed that for me that day. But there's a condition on that. That the growth of my spiritual experience must be contingent upon the growth of my daily practices. And what am I doing on a daily basis? So here I am down in this park and I can't stop. But I knew that it was almost a sense of I'm a member. I'm a member of AA, I felt like that day. Like I crossed some kind of threshold, it felt like. That something is different. And what I understand today was it's that transformation that goes on within every one of us when we work this process. And we have a connection to God. See, this thing that I talked about earlier, this conscious separation, what happened that day was conscious contact, which is the solution to my problem. That day was the day that I got joined with God. Because I got honest with me. That's how simple this is. I got honest with me, and God came flooding into my life. It's a miracle what happens in these rooms. And 6 and 7, I started to apply them, did the best that I can. I started to learn around a word that I had a hard time understanding, humility. I read a 1961 Grapevine article by Bill Wilson. He says in there, perfect humility is at all times and all places to seek and do the will of God. How you doing with that? There's an inventory question for a daily basis. To seek and do the will of God in every aspect of my life, all day long. How you doing with that? Fall short greatly. And what I started to learn about humility was like, I don't know about anyone in this room, but I came in here with like those emotional pendulum of, you know, one day I love her, the next day I hate her, one day I like my job, and the next day I quitting, you know, and the idea of the steps, what I found, or step 7 especially, is that to get that pendulum to stop swinging so far, to get to a place of what the 12 and 12 calls being right size. And see, there's the gift. And you know what the gift is called in there? It's called emotional sobriety. That's the gift that everyone in this room should be after right now. Emotional sobriety. A connection with a power greater than yourself. A need to help. An altruistic movement within. To be selfless. and to think of others. That's the gift. That's the payoff. And see, when you're a taker your whole life, to find out that this whole deal is about giving, man, what a concept. Well, what an order. I can't go through with it. I mean, it depends on how you look at that. But every successful person I ever met in my life, they always base their success on being a giver. And I'm not talking about material stuff. I'm talking about emotionally, and their time, and the gifts that you have, and the passion that's within you that you give out to others. And I started to learn that in here. And I had a boatload of amends like a lot of us do. I got indicted on 2 counts of grand theft when I was sober a year. I stole $28,881.78 from unemployment. And when you get an envelope from, I know Pennsylvania is probably a lot different than New Jersey, but when you get an envelope from New Jersey and there's the state emblem up top, you're not getting like a love letter from the governor. You're getting a letter that's pretty serious, and like you're in trouble. And I opened that letter, and they nailed me 1 year sober. But I had the typical alcoholic response: "Oh, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't do that." Of course I did that. I was afraid. And this guy, Bill, made me face that. So, a bunch of kind people wrote nice letters about me. Now I'm getting into service. I'm doing a lot of things. I'm involved in meetings. People getting to know me. And I had a lot of people that liked me, and they started to write really kind letters about what I'm doing in AA. I had a little AA lawyer who was a pain in the ass, but he was a nice guy. I took him along, and we went to the courthouse. At the time I was married, I said to my ex-wife, now, I said, you know what? I might have to go back to jail for this. But I got to get this right, see, because I'm really clear on the fact that if I don't face my financial creditors, there's a good chance I'll drink again. See, I can't keep on trying to live this path or walk on this path and keep on looking over my shoulder with all that guilt, shame, and remorse. That I need to start amending the things that I've done in my life. So there's a willingness kind of inside that says, you know what, if I go back to jail, I'll go back to jail. But what I didn't see was what the judge saw that day. He saw Alcoholics Anonymous show up in his courtroom, and that we were an altruistic bunch thinking about others and trying to help others, and they all gave nice letters and all this stuff. It was almost embarrassing because I'm like, they're talking about me? Yeah, they were talking about me. And what the judge did was, he gave me 5 years probation. He didn't put me in jail, and I had to pay it all back, which I did. And with a lot on top of that. That's called interest for you new guys. I told that story to a guy I sponsor. I sponsor a Hell's Angel from San Francisco. And he gives me the permission to tell this story, but I think it's really powerful because we never know what God has in store for us, right? Never know that, right? I can have all this attachment to what it's going to look like, what's going to happen, blah, 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 but I never know what it's going to look like. And I just talked to him yesterday, so he says, yeah, you can tell that story again. He's kind of sick of it. So I told him, so he goes to me, well, Jimmy, I got to go back to San Francisco. I got to go back to jail to pay back some amends. I got to go finalize my divorce, and I got to quit the Hells Angels. Now, quitting the Hells Angels is not like quitting the Knights of Columbus. Believe me. Believe me when I tell you that. So, so he goes out there, and he gets to finalize the divorce. That was kind of easy, he said. Then he went to go quit the Hells Angels. And when he showed up at the clubhouse, they said to him, well, we need you to do this first before that. You could, they were baiting him. And he says, no, I can't do that. And my boy Ian knows who I'm talking about over here. Then they said, well, you need to do this. And they said, I can't do that either. So what they did was 3 guys bigger than me took him in an alleyway, and they almost beat him to death. And he went into jail the next day. And before he went to jail, he shot me a picture of what his head looked like. And he had staples from the top of his ear all the way. His head looked like an eggplant. That's what I thought it was. When I said, wow, he's growing eggplant in California now. No, it was his face. It was purple. And so he's like, I can't believe, why would God have this happen to me? Why am I doing this? Why, Jimmy, what the hell are you telling me to come to California and do all these things for? So he goes to jail, and now he's in jail, right? He gets the flu, comes out of jail, in prison, he goes into the yard. He's sitting in the yard in prison, and some young kid walks up to him and says to him, hey, he starts small talking. The young kid says to him, he goes, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and my home group, and I'm here to make my amends, but I didn't finish my steps. And my boy looks at him and goes, you're kidding me. He goes, yeah, I need to work through these steps, and then when I get out, I'll get back with my sponsor. And this guy that I sponsored said, it's amazing where God brings us. They got on their knees in a prison yard and they did a third step prayer. And he took that man through the 9-step process before that kid got transferred out of that pod. And then he knew. He knew why God had him in that prison. He knew why God had him take that beating. He knew why God had him back in California. It was to free another man. And that's the power of what we do in these rooms. That's the power of these inventories that we write. It's not to get me free, it's to get you free. My amends, hey, we all want the 12 promises after the 9th step, right? But the real deal here is we hope that the people that are on the other side get those promises just as much as us. Whether it's my mom, whether it's my ex-wife, whether it's the cops, whether it's all the other people that I've harmed with my behavior, that they could have some peace and serenity when they're around me, when they could start feeling the things that we feel in here, that they could start experiencing peace and comfort when they're around in our presence. And that's what started to happen to me. Last story on amends, I thought my mom, I thought I was 6 years sober when I made amends to my mother, and she's still alive today, 88 years old, still growing. These guys just met her. I thought, she would just pat me on the back and say, yeah, Jim, just keep hanging with those guys, you're doing a great job, So I had an attachment to what it was supposed to look like, that she's just going to say that, and I'll be out there in 10 minutes, I'll go get lunch somewhere, right? I show up at my mother's house 5 hours later. When I left her house, she read me the riot act. And it wasn't that she came at me meanly or angrily or anything like that. She let me know how much of a peace of mind that I stole and how much security that I stole. She talked about the nights my mom's around that big, at best. I always thought I got adopted. I'm the only one over 6 foot in my family. My mom's like 5'5". She would talk about walking around Jersey City at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night because I went out to play softball on Wednesday and I haven't been home since. And she didn't know where I was, and this is pre-cell phone age and beeper age, and she would walk around looking for her son on her tippy toes, she would say, looking in bars and asking guys, where's my son? Where is he? Is he dead? Do you know where he is? Can't imagine my mom doing that right now. Can't imagine anyone doing that. But that's what we do to people. We don't really care. And as I worked through the rest of the steps, I started to get involved, went through a divorce, got remarried eventually. I got my wife, Mary Beth. She's sober 18 years next month. We have a great life. We live down on the Jersey Shore. I live in Spring Lake, New Jersey, the Irish Riviera, we were just saying. Not bad for a Polak Hungarian like me. I got it made, the life I have. I had a great job for a while. I got injured in 1999 really bad. I've had 32 operations in the last 12 years, going in Monday morning for a little tweaking, and again, it's life. The older I get, this is life. But I tell you what stays constant in my life. It's meeting new guys and meeting old guys and putting my hand out and getting active and being part of a home group. We started a home group down on the Jersey Shore. We have a Sunday night big book meeting that gets 300 people every Sunday night. We're jam-packed. I started a big book retreat weekend, the Jersey Shore Big Book Retreat Weekend. It sells out every year. In 3 weeks, we have the Jersey Shore Roundup. I got inspired to start that, a 3 Legacies convention. I got 500 people coming down on the Jersey Shore from all over the country. We bring in 13 speakers from everywhere. We have fellowship, we have service, we have recovery, we have fun. We have fun. We're all meant to be happy, joyous, and free. But a price has to be paid. The death of self. It has to go. That old self had to go. And through the process of the steps, and I've worked the steps many times. I just got done working the steps with a guy that I admire, his sobriety. And again, I always talk about the first time I got the steps the first time. But, now I just finished, I did an inventory and everything, and I shared it. And it's really like after 27 and a half years, it's like, damn, that shit still shows up. I can't believe it. But that's the way it is. And then today, just a miracle for a guy like me to be voted on to be an elected area official. It's like, and I'm sure if I came back here in a year, I'd have a list of resentment list up to here, a 10-step of resentment. I'm truly grateful. I'm truly grateful for Ron asking me to come out. I am so dead exhausted today. It was an emotionally one of those days, but a very gratifying days that, you know what, they didn't lie to me when they told me that. Jimmy, you be honest, you be open-minded, you be willing, we'll put you on a path that really goes somewhere. And as a result of that, here I am, sober, happy, joyous, and free. My life is blessed, and I am so grateful for the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, this relationship with a power greater than myself, and more importantly, all you guys that I've met along this path. You've really helped me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Awesome speaking. We have 2 rooms that we have this meeting, and actually it's being moved to the big room permanently, but they're having a breakfast there. So just keep in mind, if you come to this meeting, and that's not this room, we're in the other room, or vice versa. If we're not in that room, we're in this one. And anybody that hasn't got a chance to share, we meet at Perkins after the meeting, and we solve all the world problems. Next week's speaker is Chris B. If you never heard Chris, high energy, good stuff. And I'd like to invite you all to close with the Lord's Prayer with us that we'd like to do.